pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, get rid of the muffler here and get on with my report. We do have, and will be having some guests tonight, and just to be sure that people do sign in, and we don't have a microphone at the podium, so if you're asked to speak, we ask you to sit in one of the fronts. We do have a spare microphone turned that way. Hopefully it'll pick up good enough to hear on the recording. As far as reports, we were pretty much all involved in 2 days worth of interviews and fun festivities for interviewing city administrator candidates. We will have 2 public hearings tonight, one at 6:30 in regards to certification of past due bills, and then one at 6:45 in regards to recreational programs and requests for support for 2021. And just a reminder that there is this thing called an election coming up on November 3rd, and encourage people to vote if you haven't already done so. That's it from my report. Councilmember LeBeau.
Other than the interviews, I have nothing else to report.
Okay, Councilmember Herzberg.
It was 2 days and 1 night.
Yeah, you got stuck on the negotiating team, as did
That's been ongoing too.
Councilor Rinke. Your turn.
We have the interviews and then a number of negotiation committee meetings, and believe we're fairly close to an agreement, but not ready to finalize yet.
Okay, Councilmember Gilmore.
I'll help out Sean here. We both had a policies and procedures in the EDAP board.
Oh, I forget those.
Okay. Well, that's fine. You were there.
You didn't know.
Okay, then we do have some department head reports, but first of all, we have our liquor store manager, Bill Ludwig, with a little bit of a report and a handout.
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. In your council packet, you saw the liquor store update. Just to give you a sales update, we're now 342,000 up over last year, and profit up over 70,000 since the 1st of October. So we gained a little steam in October. We started a loyalty program for our customers. Huge success. Right now we have 520 customers signed up. You can redeem points. It's working out very well. So the new software system had a few hiccups here and there, but they've been fantastic to work with, and it's going very well. So, and we're going to start doing audits as it's that time of the year. And we did a virtual wine club with Chateau Ste. Michelle, and it sounds like we've got a few more things in the works doing it virtually. Had really good attendance from our wine club, and look forward to doing more of those. So, and then I have a check to present.
Chris, going to take a picture, or Belinda is? Okay, Belinda's going to, or somebody.
So this is our second annual fundraiser for the Fire Relief Association. It's sponsored by Coors Banquet. This year we raised $835.25. The guys came out on a Friday night, had a really good turnout, brought fire trucks, things for the kids. It was a great showing, so we have a check that will be cut to them for the Fire Relief Association, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. And look forward to doing it again next year. So that's my report.
Got the maker codes and everything on there, right?
Yeah.
Negotiable.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody on the department for your work.
I'll pass it over. Thanks.
Is that it? Any questions for Bill? If not, we have Police Chief Paul next.
Thank you. Just a couple things to report on. 2 items more for the community than the council. Just want to remind everybody this Saturday is Halloween. There's going to be a significant number of kids, especially if they're talking 50 degrees, out, potentially going door to door. So I want to remind, motorists to be cautious and be aware that they may see more activity from the kids out in the community coming on Saturday. And also, I believe, downtown business districts, a trunk or treat is this Saturday as well. So there'll be a lot of activity in town next weekend, or this weekend, I suspect. And then since we were blessed with snow last week, I thought I'd bring up that the city snow removal does go into effect November 15th. Just want to keep that on everybody's radar so that as we head into the winter season, we can get those cars off the road and get the streets cleaned. As far as the department goes, we are currently in the final stages of taking care of the state mandated policy changes. A couple of those things are on your guys' agenda this evening. We are in the final stages of the body cam program as well. That's also on the agenda. The department will be moving towards and transitioning over into a, I don't want to say a new, but a different RMS system. It's a system that's been there for a little while. It's kind of clunky, but due to state and federal reporting, we have to move over to this system. We're hoping that within the next couple of years, the county will actually get a new RMS system in place that's a little more user-friendly. So we'll be doing that over the course of the next 2 months here. And then I am working on a program, actually a couple different programs to try and organize, it's a little hard with COVID, but try and organize some either monthly or by kind of every other month gatherings, maybe over at Firehouse and different destinations where citizens, business owners, if they've got questions, can come in and set some time aside to sit and meet with them and answer any questions that they would have. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Paul, the chief? I do have one which kind of leads into Ron's report here too. You mentioned the snow emergency, and then we had one the other night. How did that go as far as?
I think it went very well.
Okay.
Cars were all cleaned off downtown. However, in the residential area, I know there was a number of them, but this time of year, we did just go around them.
Yeah.
So we had discussed that, and I spoke with, obviously, the code red went out. I talked with Ron ahead of time. We knew kind of where the important areas were. Officer O'Brien, who worked that night, actually spent some time talking to people downtown to get them to move their vehicles. And we had kind of made the decision that as long as downtown was taken care of, we were going to let the residential go. But if downtown was an issue, then everything was going to be an issue.
Because I know I'd seen a number of campers that were still on the road, so they were kind of tough to tow them.
Yeah.
But other than that, from what I saw, I think it went pretty well, so.
All right, Ron?
Right, thank you. My report's very brief. We did have the leaf pickup Saturday. Due to the weather, that was down quite a ways. The compost site, we will keep open until roughly that November 15th, weather permitting. Parks are all shut down, but we do have the DNR coming out for the press release on the fishing pier on Wednesday at 12:30. So we'll be at that. I do get quite a number of calls questioning what our water hardness is. If anybody needs to know that, it is 19 grains per gallon. And hardness, again, is the calcium and magnesium amount that's in the water. Street sweeping, weather permitting, we will get back out there and do that, put the snow blower back away for the year, and hopefully we won't have to use it for quite a while. Again, just to follow up on what Paul had said, residents, I guess we do ask you to make sure you shovel your sidewalks when it does snow. Try to keep them clean. That's all I have.
Any questions for Ron? All right, thank you. Then Belinda.
As you indicated earlier, Mayor, we do have election coming up here very shortly. In the meantime, there seems to be a little misconception on different types of absentee ballot services we offer. For the entire county, we can accept drop-off mail-in ballots. We can take those in, and that runs in through Monday. In-person voting starts tomorrow, and that runs through Monday. That is only for city residents of Painesville. Any others can go to Melrose or St. Cloud to vote in person. Saturday, we are open from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for election purposes, and Monday the 2nd, we will be open until 5. We are going to be closed on November 11th for Veterans Day, and on the 12th and 13th, which is Thursday and Friday, the state has closed DMV for the MnDRIVE rollout. City functions will still be open, but we won't be able to do motor vehicle driver's license or DNR on those days. And that's all that I have.
Okay, questions?
The hope is that you'll be able to do DMV after? on
That's the
last
hope.
go-around? Okay.
Hopefully it rolls out a little better than Minlar's did.
All right, thank you then. And then we have before us the consent agenda, which will be the minutes from those 3 meetings on page 1, the vouchers on page 2 totaling $803,466.47. And very timely here, the request to approve Lee Schlafer and Jason Ruhoff attending the Winterizing Your Water System training session on October 29th.
So move to accept.
Second.
Motion by Hertzberg, second by Rinky to approve the consent agenda. Discussion. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? None? That carried. I assume they're already registered, right?
They are.
Check has been cut.
Yep. All right. Plan ahead. Okay, then the next one, interesting here in regards to the possibility of live streaming our meetings. We have, I don't know, who's going to give us an
Well,
update
Kristen
here?
and Rudy were supposed to be here.
I saw Rudy wandering around. Yep. There they are. Mm-hmm.
Do you want us to just stop in the middle, or?
Well, if you, yeah, in the front 2 seats there, and then we'll try and pick you up on this microphone here, so. What you got?
So, or if you want to start. Okay. So basically, we have 2 options. One is, both options include purchasing a new piece of hardware, because the hardware we have back there isn't gonna work, it's too old, and doesn't run on the right equipment right now. So our first option is the 360 Lite Live, which kind of works in tandem with what we have right now, Cablecast, with what we're broadcasting right now. So it works kind of on the same system, in which it'll create a new web page in which we can broadcast the entire channel live on the website 24/7, including all of our bulletins and announcements, all of our meetings, and plus all the church services that we broadcast right now. And so that one is the more expensive option at $4,000 some dollars. We should have exact amounts.
$41.75.
Yep. And so our second option is the, basically, the Hello, it's basically just a streaming computer. We would just add another computer to the back, hook up our live feed, hook it up to that computer, and that computer would just be separate. I'd be running both the broadcast and the live streaming in the back during the meetings, and that would be live streaming to YouTube. And so we'd set up a link every week and just post that to our website. People can click the link, follow it, similar to what the school does with their sports activities. That one is the cheaper option, but it's really more temporary because
you're using a free service. So every time they make a change to the software or they do an upgrade, they don't tell you. So you're coming to do the council meeting live and you can't do anything because you have to download a new version of it. One of the advantages is that you don't have to keep jumping back and forth with links and links. If you use the other setup, which would be the Live 350, then the whole entire channel goes out. So I'm sure you've heard people in the community saying that they can't get it because they don't have cable. Well, now you can just go to the website, click on the link, and then the channel will be there. You won't have to do anything with any connections with the live streaming. We have that in Wilmer. We've had it for a year. You can watch it on your phone, your tablet, your pad, your computer, whatever you want to. You just have to get to that link.
And that all gets saved all the time too?
What's that?
It gets saved also?
That's a good question. I think that there is some, it does save for a portion of the time. It's a cloud-based system. So I don't know, I can double check with it, but there is some.
If it's saved, then we wouldn't have to record it.
Well, the recording would need to be done so you can replay it on the server.
Yes, I would still be recording.
Yeah, we would still need the backup recordings.
The recording would be to go to the server to play on TV, and then also a video would be uploaded for YouTube too. So it would still be on YouTube too.
So with the live though, it does include a subscription service. So it is $1,700 a year to use that, but that is for that continuous streaming.
And that's the streaming. You don't have the speed here in Painesville to support the bandwidth, and we don't have that in Wilmer either. Plus, you don't have to worry about it. Once it's there, if there's any technical issues, it's at the company's end, so they can take care of any technical issues that there may be.
So that is the 4175, and then plus it's an annual.
Yeah,
1170, yeah. So it's about $100 a month for the bandwidth part of it.
But I think that's included in the initial 4175.
Yep, it's included in there, and then
For the first
following
year.
the following year, the year would be 1170.
Yep.
And I believe there would be some expense for Marco to install.
You would order the equipment, Marco would come in and get it up on the network. It needs a static IP address so you can access it, and then once that's done, this company will work with the IT people to make sure that everything is working together in order to get that stream out. And then we need to set up the video setup, because we're going from an analog to an SDI interface, and that's, both of them have that interface cable in there, which is $180.
So with the second option, there's not really any technical support included with that one?
Yeah, they set it up too. There'll be the technical, the IT.
Marco would set it up, but after that, it's pretty much up to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if there is an issue, then all you have to do is a help desk ticket with a company called Tightrope, and then they can go into the computer and find out if there's an issue with it. But we've had it up for a little over a year, and we haven't had any problems with it yet.
Yeah, so with the more expensive option, there is that additional support. And again, we already have an account with them for our cable, and so it'll just integrate right in.
The equipment back there is, some of it at least, is quite old. If we decided within the next 3 years that we were going to upgrade everything else, which one of these two would work better with upgraded equipment overall?
The
live.
45 or 4100. That is one thing to keep in mind too, since you did bring that up. The server that currently is back there is not Windows, it's not upgradable to Windows 10. So if that does go down, there is no technical support for it. These servers last a long time. And so if that does go down at some point, you're looking at about $9,000 to replace the server.
What is that running?
Their server runs all of the programming.
Right, but what operating system right now?
It's, the newest ones are 10.
Right, but what is the current one running?
The one we
Oh,
have is
7.
running 7.
Okay,
and-
7, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the most robust for us.
So we'd still need to keep our channel 8 and all that.
We would still keep our channel 8, we would still keep the broadcast over at MediaCom. Both options would just be adding that additional website online option.
Yeah, that's what somebody could stream that currently doesn't have channel 8.
Yeah.
So is this gonna be simple enough for all of our meetings, so you don't have to be here to turn it on? If they want a public works meeting, or if they want a policy procedure meeting, God, why you don't wanna watch it, I don't know. But anyway, let's say you wanted to watch something for 2.5 hours. Is that gonna be easy for somebody else to set up, or do you have to be here?
It should be easy enough, and so pretty much right now, what I do is easy enough as long as someone takes the time to learn it. It's really just a matter of knowing what buttons to push. And there's there's not really a necessary order or anything. Like for going live, all it is just clicking a button on a web page for us to go live right now. And just making sure all the equipments, the mics, the TVs, cameras are on. And so if someone wants to stream or broadcast like another council meeting or another committee meeting that I'm not here for, I could even like right now I could easily type up directions for it and someone could just follow along. And pretty much either option would be the same, but the 360 Live, it would probably just be one more button instead of the additional computer. The Hello would be a completely separate system.
That would be virtually impossible for somebody to figure out, even with instructions. That's why we got away from it. You don't have to do anything with a meeting with regards to the streaming that's going to come from the 350. So it's always there. It's always on. You don't have to do anything. The channel is completely streamed. So when you click to go live, like we just did a little bit ago, it's actually just going through that computer to the website, to the link, and then you can just click it and watch it. And there is, she talked about how hard it would be. I've been the consultant for the city of Painesville for quite a few years. The only time, if there was a meeting that Kristen couldn't do, I can certainly come over and do it. It's just that I can't do it on Mondays because Mondays are our council meetings.
I was just wondering, because it said all the meetings, and there's quite a few meetings, and there's probably some people who'd want to watch some of them if they're available. And if we're going to buy the equipment that can do it, then we should do it.
And you know,
my theory.
I've done it before where I just go back there, get it up, set it to record, hit live, and I come back up and work on other stuff when we've had meetings during the day. It's not something I necessarily have to be back there to monitor, and it's not.
Perfect.
Because yeah, we've had meetings before where I haven't been here, and so back when Renee was here, she would just get it all set up, hit record, come out, have the meeting. You don't have necessarily the like audio control and everything when someone's not, and the camera angles when someone's not monitoring it, but it's enough that you can at least get the gist of the meeting and get the audio and everything out there.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, I like the idea of being able to do it in a more centralized fashion. I know the question came up last week about how we can increase participation, or at least it was discussed, participation and involvement. I think the added cost is justified, so I would move to approve the Tightrope live streaming edition in the amount of $4,175.
Second.
Motion by Ranky, seconded by Gilmore to approve the Tightrope live streaming edition in the amount of $4,175. Discussion?
The only thing I would ask is, we have, as of August 31st, we have just under $7,800 in the cable capital improvement fund. Would you want to take it out of there, or this will not be able to get ordered and paid for in time for the COVID relief monies that are in the general fund? However, we could potentially use the rest of our COVID funds for the public safety salaries, which I'm going to present to you later. And this could come out of the general fund reserves that are saved from that public safety salaries.
I was going to ask about the capital improvement funds, and I think that, Alicia, you had a question too. Was it, or Neil had a question?
That's what's going to be my
Okay.
question, if we have, what's in the budget. Do we have, where else would this, if we got 7,000, where would that, why would we not take it out of there?
Well, apparently it will cost $9,000 if the server ever goes down.
Yeah, it's whether or not you want to
What's your,
use our reserve money that's saved from the public safety salaries, if we go that route later.
I think if the server were to crash, and Rudy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we'd probably be spending a lot more than the 9,000, because my guess is that would be then a good time to upgrade a number of other things.
It could be, yes.
And I would guess we'll probably be dipping into the reserves at that point for whatever we would need to do. So I think it should probably just come out of cable for right now, but I certainly see the point in saving that money.
We'll be talking budget tomorrow night, but then, the additional annual, not for next year, but we'll have to take that into consideration for years down the road too, then, correct?
We will. Do you know what the transfer into that CIP is every year?
Yep. It is $1,000.
Okay. So that's not even enough to cover the annual.
It would not be. The annual would have to come out of the general fund cable department.
Okay.
Okay, we do have a motion by Rinky, second by Gilmore, to authorize, to approve the Tightrope live streaming edition and that $4,175, and the understanding is to come out of the capital improvement for the cable.
Okay.
That portion of it. Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carried. Got a couple minutes yet here. So the next item then is the chief mentioned that also we're looking for motion to approve the temporary street closure from the chamber. That is as indicated on the chart there, and that's on James Street East and a little bit of Augusta for Saturday, October 31st for the trunk or treat.
I move to approve the temporary street closure application for the Painesville Chamber of Commerce on Saturday, October 31st, 2020, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Second.
Motion by Rinky, seconded by Hertzberg, to approve the temporary street closure application for the Painesville Chamber of Commerce on Saturday, October 31st, 2020, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Discussion? All in favor, aye? Oh, was that a question?
Just a comment that if the kids can use this, it's a very good alternative to the door-to-door with the COVID. I'd highly recommend this over the door-to-door.
Okay, anything else? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We have none there. Motion is carried. And got a minute yet here. We'll get to you, Mr. Bertram. The next thing is mortgage satisfactions for the Sweeters. Dennis has passed, but Carolyn is still with us, looking to approve that satisfaction.
I'll make a motion to approve the mortgage satisfactions for Dennis and Carolyn Sweeter.
Second.
Motion by Gilmore, seconded by LeBeau, to approve the mortgage satisfactions for Dennis and Carolyn Sweeter. That goes back to 2009, and they've all been paid in full, just to make note of that. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carried. And it is 6:30, so we will recess the council meeting and call to order the public hearing that has been set for certification of past due bills. And Jeff, did you get the update from, okay, so there's been a couple that have been taken off. And just to note here that this is an annual thing that the council deals with for those refuse bills, water and sewer, and mowing and miscellaneous bills that have not been paid. We required a hearing for people to address the council before they do get certified onto the property taxes. So is there anybody here on the list? The list is part of the record and the agenda there. Nobody? Do you have anything to add, Jeff?
Not about the list. The list is shorter than it's been in recent years. But West Central, we appreciate that we've had a long partnership, relationship with the city of Painesville, and certainly have appreciated that. And, this is a small way of making sure that garbage is cleaned up and the bills are paid and everything is on the up and up. So we appreciate the opportunity, and as you know, we work with all the people that do owe us money to try to take care of this. Belinda does a great job with Stacy make sure we can clean it up before tonight, but again, this is the smallest list we've seen for a while, so thank you for the opportunity.
Anybody else for the hearing? If not, we will close the hearing and reopen the council meeting, and it would be appropriate to deal with item B under old business and certify those.
I will move to certify the deferred assessment, delinquent refuse, water and sewer, and rescue accounts to the county auditor to be placed on the real estate taxes.
Second.
Motion by Rinky, seconded by LeBeau, as on the action sheet with the updated list from our update. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. And greetings to the rest of the West Central staff.
Thank you.
Okay, then go back up to item D, postage machine contract on page 14. This is almost as bad as dealing with electronic stuff, the way that the meter people work too.
So our postage machine is a leased item. We are entering the end of our lease. I believe it's in December. So the gentleman from the company that we have our lease with got a hold of me, and he said we do actually have to upgrade due to some new requirements through the postal service. The current lease we have right now is a $50 per month lease. The new one would be $55 per month. However, he is giving us 3 free months. So that breaks it down to $52.38 a month when you take that 3-month free into consideration. It appears to be very similar to what we have now. I don't think there's going to be hardly any change to it.
Make a motion to approve a postage machine lease between the city of Painesville and FP Mailing Systems.
Second. Motion by LeBeau, seconded by, I think Gilmore seconded, didn't you? You were gonna make the motion, but Alicia stepped all over you there.
Yeah.
So we have motion by LeBeau, seconded by Gilmore to approve a postage machine lease between the city of Painesville and FP Mailing Systems. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None, and that one carried. And we have Attorney Spooner here to talk to us about ordinance number 20, with some suggested changes there in regards to deferred assessments for senior citizens. Bill?
So we've had this ordinance that defers assessments for seniors for some time, and in there, on the face of it, if you were the owner and you qualified, but then you transferred your interest for some estate planning purpose, there didn't seem to be any exception that allowed that to happen without triggering repayment. I think Jennifer and I have at least on occasion visited about this, and we've said that doesn't seem right, let's not do anything. But I had an attorney from St. Cloud contact me. He was doing some estate planning for somebody, and he said, gee, I'd be way more comfortable if your ordinance changed to actually say it was okay than just taking your word for it. And so that's what brought this before you, is just a sense that would clarify what we've kind of been doing, and it's obviously better to have the ordinance say what you want it to say. And so if the council's comfortable, essentially, it's been changed in 2 places to clarify that the ownership can be something other than simple ownership by the people who have it. They could own it by some other mechanism as part of an estate plan, such as holding a remainderman's interest where they've transferred property to their kids, but they're still living there and they still have the remainder interest, or they transfer it to a trust. The idea is basically, as long as it's still their homestead, that we wouldn't interfere. Or that it wouldn't trigger an obligation for payment, I should say.
See, that's the trouble with dealing with attorneys all the time. They always find something, right?
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, I think we recognized long ago that it was an issue, but we just never brought it to the council's attention, and so here we are.
And I would just add that if we attorneys had feelings, we might resent them.
the best attorneys I know are people.
Some of us.
Makes sense to me.
I'm not disputing it. Policies did look over this. We talked a lot about how it might be difficult to catch everyone that might transfer ownership and not actually still live there. But that's a problem we're currently having anyway. There's no good solution under the existing ordinance or the new one, except that the new ordinance reflects what we've been doing, so we said go ahead with it.
So if there are no objections, it'll be posted for the, oh, yep.
Yeah, so it's not posted for the 10 days yet, so we.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, if there are no objections, it'll be posted for the 10 days and considered at our November 9th meeting. Okay, all right. Then on to item F, ordinance number 19, CenterPoint Energy Gas Franchise. And Bill, you're up again here too.
So this is something that comes up every 20 years or so, I guess. And we had been through this, I know Ron had, it was probably almost a year ago, maybe not quite that long ago, but, and it looked good. CenterPoint had made the changes we requested, and then never got back, never said, yes, it's acceptable to them. So when I reached, Ron said, where are we with this? And I reached out to the guy, and he's like, oh, well, yeah, except now we have a new form. So we kind of went through all the same discussions. In the end, I think they made all the same changes that we had asked for the first time, and so it was, so I think, I don't know if you took this to Public Works, Ron, or where this has been, but.
Yes, we did take it to Public Works, and I guess the big question there is, do we want to charge a franchise fee to CenterPoint Energy? And knowing how a franchise fee would simply be an added line item on everyone's bill, Public Works felt it's just an added tax, and the answer would be no. I guess the one change that I got is in 3.3, the very bottom line there, the company shall not be required to post a construction performance bond. Remember a while back, we just initiated our performance bond, but in looking at this, they also give us the right, if it's not repaired within 5 days, we have the right to go and repair it. So I guess there's no issue with that also. So yes, they did recommend it as drafted here.
I'll make a motion to approve the CenterPoint Energy Gas Franchise Ordinance number 2020-19.
Second.
Motion by Gilmore, seconded by Renke to approve CenterPoint Energy Gas Franchise Ordinance number 2020-19. Discussion. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? That would be none. All in favor, yeah, that carries.
Then make the motion to approve the official summary of ordinance number 2020-19.
Second.
Motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Renke to approve the official summary of ordinance number 2020-19. Discussion on that. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? None, and that one carried. And we got a few minutes here yet, so we'll go on to the solar land lease and easement. And my understanding, that's just a name change, correct?
That is correct. I tried to get it out of them when they plan to move forward. All they said is they would get back to us. Once this has been signed, they will likely give us a date.
I mean, it looks like a pretty, you know, I've seen some of these agreements before. It seems like a pretty standard agreement. The only thing that bothered me a little bit about it was it doesn't really define what goes on during the development period. But, I mean, from every other one I've ever dealt with, the development period is sort of the time that they get to think about whether they want to do it or not. They maybe do some soil borings, but I don't think during the development period, I don't think they're really interfering with your use of the property typically. It's only once they start construction that they're gonna, So you know, they're giving themselves a fairly long time to decide whether they want to go ahead or not. I don't know if they'll take that long, but they,
Yeah, they didn't give any answer when they're gonna move forward.
I'll make the motion to approve the land lease and solar easement between the city of Painesville and whatever that is, 8 LLC.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay, we finally did get a motion by Birchburg and a second by Gilmore to approve the land lease and solar easement between the city of Painesville and DIVOCSG, it's like your B, at the optometrist there, 8 LLC. Discussion?
Just, this is, Bill, this is permitted through our new solar ordinance and everything, right? Because we had the moratorium for a while.
yes, and this land, as I understand it, is probably, is this outside the city limits, Ron, or is?
Correct, it is.
It's technically not, so there, some of the requirements that, there's some term in here that, you know, provides, I guess, in terms of who would require bonding or assurance related to, if they abandon the site. That's actually probably going to come through either the town board or either the county board or the town board. I'm not sure which, but it's not, you know, normally you would think because they're making this deal with the city of Painesville that you'd have something to say about that, but it's really going to be, so there's going to be a point where there might be a hearing on this to decide what that is, and you may have an interest in having some input on that. I'm not sure if that's going to be the county or the township that'll decide that, but.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Then we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? None, that is, we have a couple minutes or two here. Chief, how long are you gonna take here?
On this one, not very long.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. The policy before you is a new policy that's been mandated by the state of Minnesota. As of the last legislative session, the department was required to come up with an eyewitness identification policy. Basically what we did is we took the post-mandated or post-model policy and just simply adopted that. The policy was sent down to the post board. They approved it as it is their policy. So the only thing that we would need is your guys' approval on that this evening. It did go before policies and procedures, and they recommended it without any changes.
I move to approve Chapter 26 Eyewitness Identification Procedure of the Painesville Police Department Manual.
Second.
Motion by Renke, seconded by LeBeau to approve Chapter 26 Eyewitness Identification Procedure of the Painesville Police Department Policy Manual. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None, and that carried. And it is 6:45. We will recess the city council meeting and call to order the little bit of a hearing well, I guess it's actually just to listen to the recreational programs, the funding requests. And let's see here. Who's first?
I'll go if that's okay. 6:45?
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you for listening to me this evening. My name is Jen Macher. I'm the president of Lake Coronas, and I am going to read you this letter that I submitted earlier. But the Coronas Lake Association has been a major sponsor of the annual July 4th fireworks show on Lake Coronas for more than 10 years. The city of Painesville and the Painesville Township are also sponsors. KLA would like to thank the city for their contributions over the years, and the show would not be possible without your support. We found that in order to have an enjoyable show, we're having to pay more than in years past. For the years of 2019 and 2020, KLA has spent $12,000 for the fireworks show off of First Island. In 2018, we spent $10,000. KLA can continue to have this type of show with the sponsorships from the city and the township. This year, the city contributed $1,500 and the township contributed between $2,000 and $2,500. The remaining balance is and has been picked up by the KLA membership. We continually have a fantastic support from our members annually. The Cronus Lake Association would like to officially request $1,500 from the city of Painesville for the 2021 fireworks show. We have signed a contract for the next 3 years with Hollywood Pyrotechs out of Eagan. The shows are set for July 3rd, 2020, July 2nd, 2022, and July 1st, 2023. All of these dates are on a Saturday. We would like to be able to keep the budget at $12,000 per next year. We feel that we are securing a better show with this new vendor, and we would be most appreciative for your support.
Is that the same vendor from this past,
Yes,
not the 4th of July, whatever it was?
yes.
Okay. What were I got the 2021, July 3rd, then it's July 4th?
July 2nd, 2022.
Okay.
And July 1st, 2023. All of those dates are on a Saturday.
3, 2, 1, okay. All right, and just a reminder to everybody that we're basically taking the information and the requests, and then it is part of our budget process, and then for the funds to be dispersed, whatever is approved, we'll need a request at the, after we get into the next year.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds great. All right, well, thank you so
Anybody
much.
have any other questions?
All right. Excuse me, my kids have basketball at 7. Is it okay if I?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to approve
Okay,
anything tonight
yeah,
anyway,
perfect.
so, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thank you all. Have a great evening.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
And are we going with the, are we being sexist here and going with the ladies first, Inez?
Well, actually, Steve's doing it.
Steve's doing it, okay.
Yeah, but he can still go next.
What am I doing?
Asking for money.
We certainly appreciate
Could you sit in one of the front seats here, because we don't, well, we do have a microphone there and we do have one
You
here,
can say whatever
so.
you want to say.
Okay.
We're in trouble, right?
I've been here before.
Yeah.
I've got a granddaughter that puts me in timeout all the time.
Oh.
No, I'm just part of the board of the Green Roof Community Center, and we certainly have appreciated the support that we've received over the years from the city of Painesville, and we do have some other entities that do support us, but we do respectfully appreciate everything that we have, and I think we have submitted our request to you based on prior year's support, so that's where we're at.
I guess I would just like to add that we are partially open now. We reopened on July 27th, and we're trying to do things where we can, social distance, we're enforcing the mask rules, kind of thing, so. Income has been a struggle. We've taken advantage of all the CARE Act things that have been available.
And this has done a wonderful job of subsidizing some of our expenses with grants and things that we've had over the years, so. We certainly, like I said, appreciate what the city has done for us.
Well, and as a reminder that, these are not donations that are being asked for, it's technically support of programming within the city and community that we are being asked to support. Correct, Bill?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Because we cannot donate. Any questions for Steve or Inez? Take everything into consideration with the rest of the requests.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for what you do, and we appreciate being able to use your facility over there
You're welcome.
the other night. Okay, and is that Brian back there? Why don't you come up here so we can see and hear you?
Talk to you two now.
Historical Society. You just can't get away from us, can you?
No, I can't, no matter how hard I try. So Vicki Jenigas was gonna come tonight, she's the president of the organization. Her and her husband are waiting for their COVID test results to come back, so they're in quarantine, so they sent the next best thing, which is the B squad, and that would be me. I said, I'm kind of out of touch with the organization, so I don't really know what to say, and she said, well, that's a first, and she said, I'll just do fine, so I guess the biggest thing, is just a thank you for all the years of being our top supporter. Since the organization began in 1969, the city has been the biggest supporter, and that continues, and we hope that continues in the future as well. I think the biggest challenge this year, of course, is with COVID, and the museum was actually able to stay open. There was really not very many museums open this summer, or this year. A lot of them are still closed. Actually, the only two that I can think of that have been open full-time are the Painesville Historical Society and the County Historical Society where I work. Otherwise, everybody else was closed. So that was good, and they had a decent number of people coming in. They did their social distancing and masks, and everybody's favorite thing nowadays. The challenges came with not being able to hold any public programming, any fundraising. Over the last several years, the organization has held their night at the museum in the spring, which is a gala-type fundraiser, and it usually nets around $10,000, and that's a big part of the yearly budget. And of course, we weren't able to do that this year, so we kind of took a little bit of a hit and had to dig into the coffers a little bit more than we'd like to, or I should say what they'd like to. So that, we kind of hope to be able to do it again next year, but we don't know what the future is going to bring. So that was kind of the biggest challenge. The other thing was the barn. I'm sure if you've all read the letter that Vicki sent out. We've been trying to get this barn built for years now, and it looked like it was finally going to happen. Some donations were coming in, we had the right people in place to push this thing through, push it forward, to go and find, some bigger donors to be able to do this. And I don't know if you really blame it on COVID or what you want to blame it on, maybe just the way the construction trades work and material prices have doubled, over this last year. And so it's kind of, from what I understand, put it on the back burner once again. Hopefully we'll be able to push forward with that. But unfortunately, it wasn't able to go as far as they wanted to this year. I believe the organization is asking for $6,000, which is basically a sustained amount over the past few years, so I hope to get that again. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them to the best of my ability, but I can't make any promises, like I said, I'm not kind of out of the loop.
Well, you said you can't predict the future, but everybody over there does a pretty good job of reflecting on the past.
Yeah, exactly. Really.
Any questions for Brian? All right,
Make that easy on you?
so far. Wow.
All right, well, that's all.
That's it.
All right, thank you very much.
Take it all into consideration.
Thank you. Mayor.
We'll let you know.
The Community Ed Director, Matt Dickhausen, did email that he is at a prior commitment and cannot make it, and asked that we review his letter and honor his request. I guess he did note that they did have a tough year, and I know they still did have the summer concert in the Park Series out there, which went over very well.
And they are asking for the same amount as last year.
Yeah. And they base that on the census of participants. Okay, all right. Well, like I said, we did recess for that, so we will call back to order the regular get into the regular meeting, and we were up on item I, the nuisance ordinance. That might take a little bit of time here. We're on page 82. And, oops. This has come to mind, or come to notice for a couple different reasons, and in thinking about this, I was probably in violation of this because of what it says in what is not allowed outdoors in residential areas are such things as unlicensed, unregistered, inoperable motor vehicles, and then it gets into inoperable machinery, mechanical equipment, agricultural implements, motorized vehicles, bicycles, boats, outboard motors or components, also furniture, furnishings, or appliances or parts or components thereof. And we redid our bathroom and had an old antique pedestal sink that we'd set up and had potted plants in. And as I drive around and see other people that have the old hand garden tillers, cultivators type things out, single moldboard plows, antiques, and each one of those would be in violation. And I know that our officers in police department have better things to do than, I guess, respond to complaints about things that people maybe have as historical value or decorative value, and where to draw the line. And so I just wanted to bring this to the council's attention and see if this was something to take a different look at.
Yeah, because a lot of them, like our flower garden, we have a old pull-behind tiller wagon type thing that we put there, so I guess you get into it, it's...
I'm not sure where it crosses the line as to what is decorative, what is considered art, what's considered the historical nature or whatever. I don't know. Bill, you're the expert on ordinances and how to, put them together and what's covered, what's not.
I mean, I think pretty clearly, there is a line drawing problem. There always is when you have, when you use written words to try to put something together, there's always a line. And when does it become an accumulation of stuff, and when is it a display? But that is an issue, and I guess that you'd have to deal with that on a practical case-by-case basis. But I think, when you have a single thing that's pretty clearly being used for decorative purposes, my sensibility would be that that's clearly not an accumulation of junk. But at some point, you cross a line and it becomes an accumulation of junk, and then we're under the nuisance ordinance. But I think it is, as it always is with these things, it's always a line drawing problem. When does it move from being a cute display to being an accumulation of junk? And that's always in the eye of the beholder, and that's why you have trials with juries or judges as fact finders to decide, is this an accumulation of junk or isn't it? And, so we don't want to go around willy-nilly accusing everybody who has one thing sitting in their yard of having an accumulation of junk that constitutes a nuisance, for sure. we don't want to go there, but at some point, if you have enough of those things, I guess, then it creates a problem and an appearance problem in your neighborhood, and you want to be able to deal with it. And so, I'm always open to ideas on how you might word things more carefully or better, but I think you always know in these ordinance situations that you do have to use some judgment, and you have to draw a line on, where do we become an accumulation of stuff that's offensive as opposed to, I think we all know, one person's art is another person's junk sometimes, but, you don't want to be overly aggressive, and I think people do repurpose things, and they do a creative job of it, and we want to give them credit for that, where it's got some function that they can use it for, even if it's just for decoration. But if you have a whole pile of stuff, it becomes pretty obvious that it's no longer decorative, it's just a stack of junk. And, you know, but they're not always that easy to, you know, figure out which is which, but.
So there's really not a number of accumulation, because I look at this right here and I'm going, okay, well, you got a duck boat, you got a regular boat, you got a camper, you got a couple of outboard motors, you got a four-wheeler, you got a side-by-side. Is that accumulation?
Well,
Yeah, I think I mean, it does start to get to be that way, and I think with, you know, I suppose you could say, yeah, I've got an antique boat, maybe, but, you know, if you've got a bunch of just junk boats and motors, I mean, inoperable stuff like that, I think in most people's mind, that is just junk, unless it's got some real collectible value to it, but, you know, the idea of this ordinance isn't that you can't have this stuff, it's that it should be stored inside. And, you know, people certainly have the right to collect whatever they want, but they don't have the right to necessarily have it all out in their yard.
Yeah, Chief, unfortunately, your staff is always the ones that are kind of out there on the, you know, the front lines in dealing with this. Your thoughts?
It's a no-win situation.
Okay.
I mean, the reality is, you know, I agree with Bill, you know, another man's trash is another man's treasure. If I have a plow sitting in my yard as a decorative thing, I may enjoy that. Most of my neighbors may enjoy it, but somebody else may not. You know, as far as the PD goes, we kind of take more hands-off unless tight complaints come in on these things. I would agree, you know, if you remember years back, we had the old, what were they? Drive Auto over there. I don't even remember what it was called anymore. You know, you had something like that. Well, clearly, there's an accumulation of junk cars down at Premier Auto, you know, when it was there. There's clearly something that's there. So, you know, how do you draw that line to keep everybody happy? I don't know that you can. We get stuck in the middle of it, and at the end of the day, somebody's going to be unhappy, whether it's the person complaining or the person that we're talking to. What I can say is just from my experience, we have to have some line to be drawn in that sand, because while today I may have one item in my yard, you know, what keeps me from taking 15 toilets and putting in my yard and turning them all into planters? You know, is it an accumulation? It is, but if I'm putting plants in them, is it a big deal? You know, and then the question comes, who wants to live next to 15 toilet planters in their yard or in their neighbor's yard? So I would love to see some clarity. I just don't know if there's a way to actually get clarity on a topic like this. I've had quite a few people, you know, whether it's dealing with junk. Well, we had an individual who had a whole bunch of junk lawnmowers. They're antiques. They're antiques. There's weeds growing up through them. They're not antiques. You're not, you know, there's nothing there. So I don't know where we find that line.
So I mean, I guess I kind of feel for your staff, because if there is a complaint, they are required to go and look. We really, like you say, we have no real clarity. They have to go out and make a judgment call, which is taking up time and energy.
Correct. And you know, my staff, when we have these situations, we try and work with people. We try and, you know, talk with them and, you know, and just see what we can do to find some resolution. The difficult side that we have is if we take a complaint and say, you know what, I'm going to ignore it, then we upset, you know, the individual that made that complaint. Like I've told my staff recently, you know, we have to become more cognizant of when people do come in and talk with us. Why? They took time out of their day to express concern to us about something. Whether we agree with it or not really makes no difference. it is our responsibility to look into them and see what we can do.
I will say that Paul's staff and his predecessors must do a fairly good job, or we just close our eyes to a lot of these, because I see these citations written in other small towns that I represent. I can't ever remember a citation being written for this in Painesville. There must have been one, but if it's not, maybe it should happen more often, I'm not sure, but I hope it doesn't mean that. I hope it means that they're able to work through these situations with people when they get the complaints. I think we've had some situations that we got maybe to the letter writing stage on some people that had like bags and bags and bags of yard waste or something, but it hasn't been big accumulations of really bad, like a bunch of refrigerators in the backyard or something that I can ever recall. I think, the motor vehicle one is we probably get some of those and they have to be dealt with. And hopefully they get resolved. But I think overall, it doesn't seem like it's a huge issue in town.
I guess the one that we probably have all seen, and in some ways it's neat, but if I was a neighbor, I don't know if I'd think it was so nice. Couple junked vehicles in the front yard, but they have the theme now. It's Halloween with the skeleton driving the old race car, and monsters, then in Christmas there'll be another theme, but the junk vehicles, I believe, have been in the front yard for over a year.
And, and that's a problem that should be addressed in the line. I mean, something's gotta happen with those. It shouldn't stay. It's creative that they do something with it, but.
Well, and if it was in the country, it probably wouldn't be as, I don't know.
Although my guess is that Stearns County has a similar ordinance. I'd have to look it up, but I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Something you can throw at the policies and procedure in like January.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody knows what I'm
Thinking ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this thing, but I just wanted to try and find some clarity or find out where, the chief in his department is coming from. And
Yeah, when we see those properties that are bad, and we've had those, we address them, we work with people. To Neil's point and to Bill's point, we have had a complaint on that specific property. We're trying to work with it. I certainly understand the property owner side of it. But by ordinance, and that, I think, this is one of those that's really, I won't say touchy, but it's touchy. I mean, there's, from my understanding of the situation, there's some history behind this vehicle, there's some sentimental value behind the vehicle. I would love to be able to find some means and some way to, be able to accommodate both sides, and allow them the opportunity to do, what they would like, but also, the individual that had made the complaint, to be able to assist them. And I just, absent being able to take that car and somehow display it down at the Historical Society, where we could display that, I have no idea.
That would be a good solution.
Well, we'll see what happens. There's nothing else on that. Then our next item, I think we're down to item C under old business, the updated use of force policy. Chief.
Thank you. So this is another one of those policies that has kind of come out of the stuff that's happened this year, post-mandated, and the state legislature have mandated that we update our use of force policies to include a multitude of things, including identifying that, the sanctity of life with people. We have updated our policy. This has gone through policies and procedures. I've also sent it down to the post board for their approval. Post board has signed off that our policy meets and substantially meets what their model policy is. And policies and procedures recommended this with no changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the updated Chapter 6 Use of Force Policy of the Painesville Police Department Policy Manual.
Second.
Motion by LeBeau, seconded by Gilmore to approve the updated Chapter 6 Use of Force Policy of the Painesville Police Department Policy Manual. Discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None, and that carried. And the body worn cameras.
So we are nearing kind of the end of this process with the body worn cameras. We have gone through the different steps that were required from the state. The policy was out there, I believe, at the last policies and procedures meeting. They had a open, kind of an open meeting or forum
Public hearing.
thank you, public hearing to discuss the policy. It's my understanding that there was nobody there in attendance to discuss that. So the committee approved it with a few changes. I have made those changes and highlighted them in the policy for you. I think the only thing that was of, I guess, I don't want to say dispute or question, was that last section on the prohibited uses of the body worn cameras. I did reach out. They were looking to incorporate the kind of the language that Stearns County Sheriff's Office had in there. I reached out to those guys to find out exactly kind of what their thought process was. The writer of that had indicated that, as we were discussing it, that it looked like he had missed clearing up some of his language. So some of what is in here is specifically because of that. The other part that's in there is to specifically tailor that to us versus, a sheriff's office. And I guess I haven't had a chance to have a conversation with either Councilman Gilmore or Ranky to find out what their thoughts are on those changes that are in there.
They look fine to me, and I would move to approve Chapter 27, Use of Body Worn Camera Policy of the Painesville Police Department Policy Manual.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rinky, seconded by Gilmore to approve Chapter 27, Use of Body Worn Camera Policy of the Painesville Police Department Policy Manual. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None, and that carried.
And then the second part, I guess this is what the council's wishes are moving forward. If we are in a position that the council would like to move forward and get the program going, to purchase the necessary equipment, training, and back-end stuff for it. It seems, just from what I've seen, that seems to be the direction that the council would like to go. I did get an updated quote from WatchGuard. The camera system that we are looking at integrates with our squad cameras. So not only do we get the video from the squad car, we also get the video from the body cam, and it integrates into one system. They are the only company that can provide us with that. That's why there is only one quote. I also re-looked at, just in some conversations, I believe, with Belinda, and just some different things about backups and having a backup server, that sort of thing. As much as I'm not a huge cloud person, there is something to be said because of the backup system that's provided with that, and not housing that here. So The quote that you guys should have is for $28,000 for the body cam system. That includes everything that we would need to get the program running. There will be an annual cost to that. I'm trying to see where that's at. I want to say we're probably looking about a $3,000 annual cost for the licensing for the body cam system. At the $28,000 price tag, we still will need to purchase a computer. Basically, it's an upload server. So when everything is downloaded wirelessly, it'll end up downloading into that computer and then uploaded into the cloud. That can simply be just a Windows-based computer. And based on the quotes we had for the COVID and individual workstations for the officers, I think our costs are probably about $600 for that computer. The other thing that we have is, and we had talked about this before when we talked about pricing, is the question as to whether or not we really need to get a 3-year warranty on all the body cams for a no fault. The cameras themselves, you can see, are about $1,000. It's, $2,400 to buy the warranty. That's 2.5 cameras that we would have to go down. And like I told the sales rep, if I have 50% of my cameras that go down, I'm really going to question whether or not I should continue with your product. So that's probably an additional expense that can actually come off there, which would draw our numbers down to, what, 25.5, 25.6, something like that.
I got one question. On your evidence library for web software and license, I am assuming 6 are for the officers and 4 for the squads?
Let's see here.
It's on page 128.
Page 2.
Page 2 of 3.
That's a good question. That's actually the first time I've noticed it. Is that on both of them, Len? If it's on both the quotes, then I would say.
Because there's 6 for $495 and 4 for $695.
Correct. So yeah, that's going to be for both. That's going to be for both the squads and then the body worn cameras.
Okay.
So then, yes, and thanks for catching that, I missed that. So then we're looking at an annual cost of roughly $6,000 between the cars and the cars and the camera. We don't have that expense now, that's probably why I missed it. Because we don't pay a licensing fee for the software we have their free program right now.
I just knew you didn't have 10 officers.
That I do not.
What's the timeline on this that you're looking at here? Does it fall into this year, or?
Well, I think a lot depends upon what the council would like to do. If the council would like to move forward on this, I'm prepared to call up Steve tomorrow and, get our order placed and get them coming. I do not have I would anticipate that we're probably looking at a 6-week or more timeline to actually get the items here. Plus, then we're going to have the on-site training. I had them quote out the on-site stuff just because entering into this area where we're going to wireless downloads and everything else, I think it's best to have somebody on-site to go through everything with everybody so that we understand and know where we're at. But it's really up to the council at this point on what direction you guys would like to go. If you'd like to get it implemented as soon as possible, we'll get the order placed and we'll get it here. As far as funding for it, we currently have, I believe it's almost $21,000 in our DWI forfeiture fund. I believe the discussion was potentially splitting that with COVID money and otherwise, but more or less looking at reserves. I would recommend leaving, $5,000 to $6,000 in that DWI forfeiture, because we can use that for if we have equipment go down, to replace that equipment. And then take the rest out of essentially reserves, and we can just take that out of the general new equipment line item for the PD this year.
What about if we go into next year?
Then we're really at the same place that we are right now.
We
The only
don't have-
difference is we're doing it next year instead of this year. And these prices,
Your equipment would, every year you get money kicked in for your equipment.
correct, we do, but we have not budgeted for this specific item. The money that we budget into our capital improvement largely covers our squad cars, computers, camera system, radar system, stuff like that for the cars. The one thing that we do run the risk of going into next year is this quote is good through the end of this year, so pricing potentially could go up next year.
Belinda or Paul, what is the current balance of the capital improvement for the police? I'm seeing two different amounts on the city's website. One of 64,000 and another of just 98,600. So I think I'm looking at the wrong thing in one spot.
Paul's got a list over there. I do not.
Okay.
So the current one that I show is 64,723. I will say that the one thing we have to remember is we still have a squad car that's coming this year that has to be purchased yet. So we're probably looking at anywhere between $35,000 to $40,000 still coming out of that account. Based on my depreciation scale, I would not recommend touching any of the capital improvement money. We've got $10,000 that's coming out for the outfitting of the K-9 squad car. And I do not want to bring that balance down to a zero. We're not slated to get another vehicle after this one shows up until I believe 2024. So we have time to build that back up to where it needs to be. But if we take too much out of there, we're going to need to see increased funds going into that account or money coming out of reserves when it comes time to replace a car.
You said there's how much in the DWI forfeiture fund?
From what I have, which is as of August 31st, is just $20 under $21,000.
Would you be opposed, and it doesn't really make any difference, other than we respect your opinion, the majority out of the forfeiture fund, and then the balance out of your capital improvement with the intent of, building that back up, looking for the, 2024 down the road?
Yep. I don't have any issues doing that. My concern is every year that I've tried to build it up, it gets cut. I just, I'd like to make sure that, everyone's aware that, if we take the funds out of there, that's fine. But we do have the potential, come 2024. The way it's set up, we should be fine, but, things happen. So as long as we're aware of that, I don't have any issues doing that.
Have you heard any rumblings about changes to how the forfeiture funds are distributed? What's your crystal ball?
Bill, you got a crystal ball on that one? The state legislature is not a fan of forfeitures. We currently still have 3 that we're waiting on titles on here to dispose of. We've got 2 others and some cash that's sitting there in forfeitures. I would like to think that the Chiefs Association and the Sheriff's Association have made it known the importance of forfeitures. We don't just take people's property because. There are some changes even in the DWI stuff that make it harder for us to forfeit, in that people have the right to get it back through an ignition interlock system program. So I would say that sometime probably in the next 5 to 10 years, it would not surprise me to see forfeitures go away.
Yeah, I would say-
It's a shift in funds raised for department support,
Yeah.
shifted from forfeiture to on the, property taxes.
I would just add that I think not only is the legislature not a fan, but there was a good sign out of the United States Supreme Court last year in a 9-0 decision that the Constitution might not be a huge fan either. There's some weakening to it. So,
Yeah, the Minnesota court has been a strong supporter of forfeiture, but I don't know what's going to come down out of the United States Supreme Court case, how that's going to affect future cases. But if the legislature decides they're not behind it, it's going to go away regardless.
No. Well, not that it makes a big difference now, but just, having those funds available for things like this is nice.
Correct.
I don't think Paul has ever had the experience of having the kind of forfeiture that offends the legislature. I think the legislature gets offended by high dollar values that it sees that seem like a severe penalty. I don't recall that we've ever had that happen here.
I think since I've been here, the highest one we had, I think we maybe got 9 or 10 grand off of a vehicle. As much as we try to find that Corvette to, it just doesn't happen.
It's been quite a few years, but like a 1 or 2 year old Silverado was forfeited. It's been quite a few years, but I do remember who and why.
Okay.
well, I will move to approve the purchase of body-worn cameras, necessary equipment, and training to operate the program from WatchGuard in the amount of $28,045 minus the cost of the warranty, which the chief has recommended against. And for the funding to consist of $18,000 from the forfeiture fund and the remainder to come out of the police department capital improvement plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, we do have a motion then by Rinky, seconded by LeBeau to approve the purchase of body-worn cameras, the necessary equipment, and training to operate the program from WatchGuard in the amount of $28,045.000. So, and that the warranty not be included, and to take $18,000 from the forfeiture fund and the balance from the police department capital improvement fund. Is that correct?
That's the motion.
That's the motion. That's the second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Carried and so ordered. All right.
Thank you.
Now you got something else to do. Okay, on to item E, another one of our favorite topics here, COVID.
COVID money.
Yep.
Alrighty, so what you have before you is a handful of documents that would need signatures and approval. The first one is Bill drew up a resolution regarding the remainder of the CARES Act funds. I have put together the spreadsheet for expenses in October, including accounts payable and payroll. That totals $22,791.25. When you take out all of the expenses, again, accounts payable and payroll, from March 1st through the end of October, we have spent $104,725.70 of the $189,330. That leaves us a remaining balance of $84,604.30. If you see on the first resolution here, we have got total or anticipated total of public safety salaries during that same time frame, and actually going through November 15th. Let's see, fire is $41,554.68, and police is $208,230.63. And this resolution is allowing that remainder $84,604.30 to be paid toward or allocated toward those salaries. If we did that, that would be the end of our CARES Act funds, and we would do our last reporting at the end of the month and be done with that. The next couple deal with election monies. Instead of spending our CARES Act money on election funds, there is a separate Stearns County election grant available, and there's 3 documents that go with that: an agreement grant agreement resolution, a financial report, and a State of Minnesota CARES Act Grant County municipality agreement. The only thing we have spent any money on election-related is to buy 6 new voting booths. All of the pens, the plexiglass, all of that that is election-related, the county paid for. So there is no expense there. And instead of putting the cost of those, and I believe the total cost was $703, I believe.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, 703. That's a 20/80 split, so in order to get that extra grant money there of $562.69, we would have to take $140.67 out of our budget to get that. And that's, I drew it up that way as a means to get that money separate from our CARES relief funds.
It's 140 well spent, I believe.
I would agree. Our voting booths, Ron, you can probably speak of them better than I can, but my understanding they're in pretty bad shape. And it is a way to segregate and social distance a little bit better.
I move to approve Resolution 2020-20 regarding expenditures of CARES Act funds, Stearns County Municipality CARES Act Elections Grant Agreement, Resolution 2020-21, CARES Act Municipal Finance Report, and State of Minnesota 2020 CARES Act Grant County Municipality Agreement. As an action sheet.
Motion by Renke, seconded by Hertzberg, as on the action sheet, page 129. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, that carried. All right. Now we wait for the next round if the federal government gets its act together, but I didn't say that, okay. All right, item F, rental ordinance. Brad.
Okay, so if you remember earlier this year, City Council had requested us to come up with a rental ordinance with a density provision. Jennifer and Bill and I spent a considerable amount of time on this, and we know this should go to planning board, but because it was something that was requested from the City Council, we thought we'd take it to you before they look at it and beat it apart and then send it back and play a tennis match. So we ask that you review it and provide comments before we bring it to planning.
Are we gonna run into problems with,
Access?
hmm?
Access, is that what you're?
Well, not close, but, privacy, whereas you can, just because somebody rents a house, we can walk in there, but you can't walk into my house. It's their home. My home is my home, and the place, just because they rent it, is still their home.
It is, but, I mean, I guess the structure of the ordinance is that if you know, that, I guess what we're saying is that if you want your property to be rented as a landlord, then you have to give the city access. You have to work it out with your tenants. Most people have a lease that says that they can have reasonable access with notice to their tenants. And so, you know, I don't think it's anything way out of the ordinary for landlords to ask their tenants to grant them access to the leased property for a purpose with notice, and that's the way I would anticipate this working.
I think it's actually in the Minnesota Landlord and Tenant Rights and Responsibilities Handbook. It states in there that landlords have that right upon reasonable notice. I think it's like a minimum of 24-hour notice or something.
But so, you know, that, I mean, that's the structure of it. I mean, I realize that, you know, you always have property rights concerns, and people don't like you stomping around, going through their bedrooms and so forth, but the idea here, I think the impetus for this was safety concerns for tenants, and so this is a way to try to get at that. I would be the last person to say that there aren't going to be problems and arguments about this, but there are, you know, I mean, it's not universal that cities have rental ordinances, but there are a number of cities that do, and, you know, they're problematic. We're, you know, unlike many cities, the way we've drafted this ordinance is not to look at every rental property every year. Many cities It's an annual thing, you gotta go through this every year, and I forget that we use 4 years, Brad, you know, so we're trying to be less intrusive than some rental ordinances are, but we're also trying to get access to the properties to make sure that they're meeting the requirements.
And the other question I have, you have 3, one it's 500, 2 is 1,000, then 3 you pull their guy's rental and license away, then you kick the people out. What happens to the people? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
It's a blunt instrument to try to get landlords to comply. But you know, I mean, you can change that. I mean, you know, you can have different gradients to it. But, you know, we're trying to set up a framework that says, you know, if you screw up often enough, you're not going to be able to rent your property. And that's the message that we're trying to send. But, you know, maybe that's too quick. You know, maybe, but you know, but we are only inspecting. Well, the idea that we're only inspecting every 4 years presumes that there's not problems when we inspect, because the ordinance anticipates that you may be re-inspecting. You may find violations, and you may give the landlord a notice and time to correct, but then you're going to be back. So there might be multiple inspections to ensure that the problem's been dealt with. But then once the problems are corrected, unless there's a complaint, you're not going to be in that structure until 4 years.
Then, is there a fee for the license, or?
We would have to establish a fee. Yeah.
We didn't want to spend any more time on this before.
I mean, there would be a fee.
There would have to be some
for
sort
a
of
4-year
fee.
license.
Yeah.
Right.
And I told Brad, I mean, I looked at examples of other cities' fee schedules, and, you know, they're all over the board in terms of what they charge, you know, and I can tell from the way the fees are structured that many cities have problems with landlords who say, I'll meet you on Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and no one shows up, because everybody's got a $100 fee for not showing up. You know, it's like, you know, but I mean, you can kind of see from what other cities have done, some of the issues that municipalities have run across with these deals. But yes, you'd have to set some fees. And we talked about how you would do that, and, you know, some ideas, but we didn't want to go that far until we knew what we were doing.
And that would be the cost of the light, there wouldn't be inspection charge and all that kind of stuff.
We didn't really get that far because we didn't want to spend more time on this and then have it get beaten. You know, the ordinance is the guts, and we figured that the fee schedule we could figure out once we've got the ordinance.
Yeah, I understand where we're coming from and why we're doing it. I totally understand, because there's some people who are renting, the people who own the facilities need to knock it up a notch. I get that 100%. And I'm always looking at the renters, because right now we're making them look like second-class citizens when you read this. So somehow we got it right. You look at section number 38-17 for the enforcement of it. The last sentence bothers me. The building official or designated staff will have the authority to enter any building at any time by the request of the police department or the fire department to enforce provisions of the ordinance.
Yeah, that was the sentence that caught my eye. I'm just looking at this too, because I don't want to worry about some sort of illegal search issue. I suspect the intent is if the fire department goes in and sees there's a problem, then we want to call in the building inspector, or same with the fire. But arguably, it could be a way of, well, not that you would, Paul, but I think as this is read, Paul could just call up and say, Brad, go check out this house and let me know what you see inside.
Right, but in reality, we're not going to go in without the landlord. I mean, we're going to penalize the landlord if he denies us access, but I would never want the building official to go in without the landlord's permission. I mean, that would not be smart. You know, we wouldn't want to do that. You know, I mean, so that language, I mean, I mean, whether it says that or not, I would never say, I mean, that we would do that. But the remedy would be to deny a license if the landlord denies you access and you have a reason to go in. If you've got a complaint or a safety issue, or it's time for the inspection. Those would be the reasons to go in, but you want to get the landlord to go, you want the landlord's permission before you enter for sure. No doubt.
You know, there's a lot of good things on here. One thing I didn't see, and maybe I missed it, because it's been crazy, but anyway, is there a section in here, provision, that the renter can contact the city at no cost and get an inspection?
Well, there is a provision for responding to complaints, but I don't, I mean.
So that the renter would never have to pay that fee, that's on the landlord?
Right.
Because it's their business. So if it's complaint-based, which, you know, other than the every 4-year inspection, it would be complaint-based. I guess that would fall into the fee schedule part of it, I would guess, on how that.
Just so that we're protecting the renter a little bit more and saying, you know, it doesn't cost you nothing, it's written right here. You call us up, there's a license there, please come and inspect it because the toilet's been leaking for 6 years and it's whatever.
Yeah. Well, what I see is that a renter should be incentive, what's the word I want to have, the incentive to do so, knowing there is a rental ordinance, rather than saying, you know, landlord doesn't do anything about it, you know, the city has no teeth, you know, so there is some incentive for a renter to complain.
And it would be interesting to see how many people who are currently renting want to put up with this. And any fees you charge for this, the renter is going to pay for the license.
I anticipate that would be true if I were in the business, yes, probably.
I think down the road, a meeting with the property owners, just to discuss the program ahead of time would be good.
Oh, there'll be a public hearing.
Right.
Well,
Well, it doesn't have to be a public hearing, but I suggest
the planning commission will be meeting.
Yeah.
Weren't we going to have a meeting with some of the owners of some rentals with this, or did you already?
I think that's going to be a part of the public hearing, is to allow them to comment on it as it's a draft ordinance. And that would be something else I think we should discuss is that something that the council would like to hear those comments directly, so that you're hearing it from those landlords, from those people that are renting, the fors and against it? Or would you like to just place that back in the planning commission or the planning boards back and just receive general comments back? Because we do not have to officially hold a public hearing on this, but we all decided that would be a goodwill gesture, so that we can get more people involved on the language and how the process might work.
And then, how do we know who rents?
Well, we do have some outlined in our water billing. It's going to take a little bit. It's going to actually, if I had to get a license, I'm going to call City Hall, and you're going to get a license type of deal.
Not like the dog and cat license. If I got a license, you gotta get one too.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of word of mouth. You know, they're going to tell their neighbors.
I could be wrong, but it'd be 3 to 5 years before you had everybody.
Probably.
It could be, and it's going to be working invasive right away to get the permits and the contacts, and it's going to be, you know, a little bit of work.
But you have a good idea right now, for sure.
I would say over 50% for sure.
Yeah,
Based on the water.
that's a good starting point.
The complexes and,
Is there 100?
well, we
I don't know
take
for sure.
complexes, you know, each of them are an apartment. Then you have like the Hala and the Haza, and you have some duplexes.
Yeah, I wanna say that landlord list alone was close to 100.
Some people or some cities bill out per inspection, some bill out per apartment or sleeping unit. So there's ways that we can figure that out. But to Len's point, 90% of our calls regarding renters or rental homes are from the person renting, never from the landlord. Because we don't get them, Paul gets them. Paul gets the ones that says, my people aren't paying, I want to evict these people, how can I do this? These people are, you know, doing these things bad. We don't get those at city, Paul does. different part of the city. We get the ones that are saying, my landlord will not fix the steps. My landlord will not fix the leak. My landlord, we're living in mold, we can't breathe. We have chipped, you know, asbestos or paint or lead, and it's coming from those people that are renting.
Now, Councilman Gilmore, I'd have to look back and try to see, I feel like there's a place in here where there's a complaint-based response, but I can't find it when I just flip through it. Maybe it's not there and it needs to be. That's a point that I gotta look back at.
You know, we're building this to protect them, so we gotta give them a way to go over beyond, because 4 years could be a long time.
Well, and that might not be the right amount of time.
No, I just say.
It was a starting point for us, because our sense was that this isn't gonna be a money-making proposition for the city, and we don't wanna do it more often than we have to. I mean, you know, we wanna do something to get started, but we don't wanna have Brad occupied doing this every year over and over again. So that was the idea, was to try to just get a start.
The other thing, the other way to enter the home would be upon ownership change. So if you currently have a rental and it's great, the license is in, you know, Len Gilmore's name, but you sell it, we're gonna re-inspect it to that new property owner.
And then if I don't let Brad in?
Well, I believe that's underneath the misdemeanor.
Right.
Well, I'm the renter though, I don't own the house, but Brad, I don't want Brad in my house.
Well, that goes back to the landlord's rights that,
Yeah.
within
The landlord's
notice.
rights is he will let us in until they comply.
Renters are obligated to allow, if the landlord calls and says we're coming in to inspect, as long as they're given whatever that sufficient notice is, they're obligated to allow that.
Okay.
If the renter doesn't, you just open the door. There is, the complaint base is at the top of page 138, in that top paragraph there. It just requires a legitimate complaint, being somebody who puts their name, address. So somebody who's willing to put a name with a complaint, as I see it.
Thank you.
And maybe.
We've gone over, I bet there's 50 cities that we've gone through their rental ordinances to try and piece this together, so sometimes it's a little fuzzy yet, whether we put it in or not.
And it was much longer, so if you thought this was long, we took a lot out to try to be more, maybe rental property friendly. We didn't worry about chip paint and some of those minor things, screen doors. We were more worried about just bigger picture things. The other second part to this ordinance, though, that somebody's really touched on is probably the least that we know much about and how we want to proceed with that is the density of rentals within a block.
And I just put something in there just to look at. I don't know if that's somewhere you really want to go, but I know that it was said that we should at least put something in so you can look at it. So there something is, but I think this was just put in for informational purposes so you could have some time to digest it, think about it, get back with thoughts and comments.
I guess that was a question I had, is when you were talking to them, is there, when you talk to other communities, any way to enforce that? It just seems to me like that would be a uphill battle to try and keep track of somebody has a rental 2 years later, somebody else buys it and it's not a rental, and
On the density part or the rental ordinance?
on the density portion.
Well, I actually talked to Chuck about that too, because, you know, potentially we're gonna have to map this out somehow. I mean, I don't have a photographic memory, and it does change, it changes daily. Ask Melinda in water billing. So the tracking of the rental units for the density portion is gonna be very time intensive. It's gonna have to be, there's some type of program built where we can search quickly by address, or some type of mapping that, you know, we can pre-map it out and have Bolton Lake provide us some type of rental map that has an R on each property.
I spoke with the building officials that I speak with in the Southwest chapter of the ICC, and none of them have anything in rental density, so I don't, you know, as far as a go-to colleague, I don't know. I did see something in I think it was St. Cloud, had something around the school, but I think
it's college towns. where-
yeah, you know, it's more like this area is gonna be rental, not so much that we don't.
Or so many blocks out from the campus perimeter.
Right.
Is rental, considered rental property. So if you are buying a home there, you're gonna know you're surrounded by rental properties.
So I guess what we're trying to say is that this is really a kind of a new, as far as we can see, a new street, we don't really know what to do with.
Is there a readily available database about what's non-homestead versus homestead, or?
I suppose a call to Stearns County.
I would have to call the Stearns County Assessor's Office, otherwise I would have to physically look at every parcel manually to, and I'm sure the Assessor's Office could potentially help us with that. That would be a good start.
That'd be a good tool.
Len's comments got me thinking, and maybe this is way out of left, I know it's way out of left field, but did you come across any proposed ordinances that might take a portion of any fines or penalties, or maybe even the application fee, and set it into like a separate account, where if a license is revoked because of an issue, that those funds might be able to help for like relocation assistance or anything like that?
No. I mean, I think all these ordinances are set up where the fees are basically trying to cover the cost of the inspections.
Yeah.
They're just trying to cover time, cost to the city.
Right now, a typical inspection that Brad would go out on, let's say to inspect a building or a house that want to be moved into the city, correct me if I'm wrong, it's $45 an hour, plus mileage, I think. So let's say he inspects, if we base it on structure and not apartment, he charges $45, but he may have to go there 3 times. So potentially we'd probably be in the hole on that inspection.
And I would assume when we would go in there and check them, when you hit into sections 3847, 3848, and you go in there and there's too many people, that you gotta do a soft sell on it. I mean, in every apartment, 2 or more rooms, every room occupied, sleeping must be 70 square feet. I'm sorry, you got 6 kids, you gotta chuck one out the window. I would assume we'd have to be real soft coming in and...
Yeah, none of this is meant to be overbearing. Right. Not at all. We're not trying to impose on people, we're just trying to make them safe, help them be safe.
It's more it's the landlord. I mean, you want the landlords to rent to the appropriate number of people in the space that they have. We're not going to be throwing babies out windows, but we want the landlords to take some responsibility for how they're renting their space.
I'm just saying, if we get this going, it would be nice to do a soft sell and then work our way into it. Kind of like when we changed the speed limit out there, we didn't give everybody a ticket when they hit Cronus Tire. It was like warnings, get a flashing sign out there, slow them down first, and now we can smoke them.
Well, kind of like we just talked about the nuisance ordinance, and how to handle some of the.
That's what I'm hoping.
The strictly by ordinance, not prohibit or not allow, but maybe for whatever reason it is. Your nephew staying with you for a month or something like that because the parents are in Europe on vacation. There's like we found out, there's always going to be some type of gray area that just needs to be handled the right way.
It might be 17 pages long, but when Brad and I talked about this a lot, it came down to, a handful of really big issues that we thought needed to be checked on. And one of them was smoke detectors, carbon monoxide alarms, railings on stairways and decks, egress windows for bedrooms. Those are the major ones. Now, yes, it does say doors and ventilation and things, but those were the huge ones that we thought really needed some power behind to make sure that people are safe and can get out safely in case of an emergency. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The one thing that, when I was looking at this, when it got sent out again, was kind of in the area of the definition of rental property. I don't know, It came to my head first when I was looking at scope on the first page of the ordinance and then in the definition of rental property. Because we've kind of defined it based on ownership. But there's a part of me that wants to, I can imagine a situation where you've got, grandpa has a house, he's letting the grandkids live in it, or something, where you're not really charging for it, but you have people living there. I don't know if we want to include that or if we want to exclude those kinds of situations. That was just crossed my mind, but there's a lot of things in there to think about, but that was one thing that came into my head when I was reading back through it again. But I think the idea of a rental ordinance is a property where you're getting some consideration for the use of it, more so than just tied up in ownership.
Well, if there weren't some nuances or faults, or we wouldn't have to go to the planning commission, but that, I think it's a good vehicle to present and see what the,
So we're gonna try to put this on November's planning commission meeting then, so if there is something you think of before that, please email me, and we'll consider it and bring it to planning board also.
Yeah.
So then based on,
start.
yeah, so then based on the next planning commission meeting, we would host that potentially on November 16th. Is it your desire then just to get comments back from the planning board and you guys set a public hearing for this venue? Or would you like the planning board to hold that? Since I don't know what the best way is because they're not required to really have one. And you might want to hear some of those pros and cons from the landlords yourselves. People may be more apt to come to a council meeting because you guys have the heavy hammer. Heavier hammer.
We are gonna get some of the, people who are renters, the landlords, to look at this like we talked about way back, right? A little group of them that we talked about to have some input.
Well, there's pros and cons to that because if we select just a few, people are gonna go, why did we all get it? So we're telling people to come to the public hearing. They can view it online, they can come get a hard copy, they can request one, we can email it to them, and then treat everybody fairly the same way.
I think it would probably make most sense to do it at planning, but to at least send out a postcard to all of those who we know through water billing or whatever, and just notify them with information on how to request a copy. That way we aren't singling people out. We have a way of identifying, well, this is how we knew about it, because we use this database through water billing or whatever it is. I agree, we'd probably get more turnout here, but I think procedurally it should be done at the planning.
I think so too, and because after, planning and if there's a public hearing in conjunction with that, by the time it gets to us, it should be fairly well hammered out and structured, rather than planning and then having, it come to council with a public hearing type thing and then have more questions come up. I just think it would be quicker and cleaner to do it that way.
Does it make sense for planning to have a meeting where they get this in front of them and they get a chance to talk about it before there's the public hearing?
I think we need to.
We would have to because there's no way we could meet all the deadlines. So if they met on November 16th to review it, the planning commission just could voice their opinions just amongst themselves, or anybody that came to the open public meeting. But then they would potentially hold their public hearing on December 21st.
Seems like maybe that ought to be pushed off till January.
Unless they wanted to maybe do it the first Monday of December. Potentially, they used to meet on the first Monday, but they kind of got bounced when the library was going on, the library committee. So potentially maybe we could do a different meeting date in December. Or we could push it to January.
I don't think there's any real need to rush this. I think it'd be better if we take a little bit slower approach.
Yeah, it seems like December is just a hard time anyway for people to be, attending meetings. So personally, I don't think there's any reason it couldn't be pushed to January for a public hearing.
And was there any feedback on the density?
Yeah, I don't, I am too. I don't, without really knowing what we have already, you don't want to make something that automatically puts certain areas or whatever, and
Well, we took an example block, and that would be Belinda's block, if you know where she resides, which is right across from the hospital, helicopter pad on Stearns. And in her block, the number of houses, she has 2 rental units within that block, and that would just meet that.
What page are we on that?
153.
I think there's a member of the planning board who will have significant things to say about density. There's another member who will have other things to say, but regarding density, there's somebody who's particularly keen on that issue, so.
What do you do if it's already over that?
It's gonna have to be grandfathered.
They're grandfathered in.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's, I can tell you one block right now, out of 3, 2 are rentals. Another block out of 6, 3 are rentals. And that's just off the top of my head.
This is where we've been running into trouble with this, because it's like, what's really right and what's wrong, and what are we really after, is where we really hung up on it.
And you wouldn't tell any of those rentals if you drove by unless they showed them to you.
How do you define something that you don't know what you're trying to define?
And then
And maybe we don't care how many rentals are on a block. I just know, this was, I think the idea for that came up when we were having the whole thing with the treatment. And people were saying, well, all these rentals are affecting my property values. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but that seemed to be a public sentiment at the time, and I don't know if that was the impetus for at least taking a look at what we could do on this, but that, it's not integral to what Brad's main concerns are for safety. It's addressing a whole different issue.
Right.
It's not the main part of this. It addresses, I think some people's sensibility that I live in a residential neighborhood, I want people to live in their residences in my neighborhood. Well, that's maybe not just the way it is, and that maybe it's not bad, I don't know. I guess people have different ideas on that, but.
I think it'd be better to tackle 1 instead of 2.
I think that this is an appropriate place to have this and at least have the discussion about it.
Yeah,
It's not that it can't be removed pretty easily, but I think it's worth having that discussion.
Yeah, you might as well talk about it at the same time. I mean, it's part of the same, it's related. It's not like totally unrelated, but it's not, like I said, it's not integral, I think, to what Brad's concerns were when we were talking about this. Brad's concerned with, he's focused on the safety part, and this is just a policy question. Does the council want to deal with density of rentals or not? Maybe it's not worth dealing with, or maybe, it's.
And how do you enforce that if I buy a house to rent it out, but I didn't know there was other 2 or 3 houses there that are rented out, and all of a sudden you say, well, you can't get it because we're over the density? I have a problem, but nobody told me the density.
it becomes like a buyer beware situation. It does. You're exactly right. That's the same thing with, does that property have a conditional use on it? Does the property share a driveway? Is there an easement on that property?
So you have the information on that forward, so if somebody buys that house, they have to come here and ask that?
Well, it's gonna be a realtor's conversation.
Yeah, that's why it's gonna be an impossible thing to enforce.
Yeah.
But I would hope that the realtors would be aware now that if we put this in place, that
I
there's
don't
a
buy
rental
from
ordinance.
realtors.
Well,
I don't buy from realtors.
Do we have
Then you
the
have to do
legality
your
to
research.
this?
Pardon me?
Do we have the legality to dictate that you can't rent a property that you buy? And like Ron said, I mean, if you're gonna,
I think we do. I mean, I think there are cities in the state that enforce this type of a density ordinance. It's not common. I don't know, I think the city of Winona has had some litigation over it, and they've been successful in defending their ordinance. So I believe it's an enforceable kind of a provision, but you never know. You never know where these things will take you, but yeah. And, it's probably fairly controversial. And I get it, there's issues with that kind of a thing, with how do I know? I mean, obviously, we'd have to maintain an accurate list of licensed rentals, so we know blocks that are up against that, and that would be on us to do that. We can't know about unlicensed properties that are renting, you know, so if somebody's renting and we don't know about it and we discover it, you know, that's a whole different kettle of fish, I guess, but.
I mean, we can all pick this apart line item by line item, but I think it's a good thing to start with, and then throw it to the next steps.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for getting it this far.
Yep. All right, that will be moving on then. We'll see what happens. And I think a lot of those types of questions will come out as part of that next process. I think, you know, news spreads fast when it comes to something like this. And all right, for information, we got the November and December meeting schedules, the liquor store report that Bill referred to, the West Central Sanitation rates. There's a report there for October. Chuck, did you have anything to say?
He's gonna make it today.
The floor is yours. If you have nothing.
The AMPI project is back online.
Okay. Excellent. All right. There's nothing else? We are adjourned. Oh, yep.
It was brought to my attention this evening that there might be a little trouble for some people to come to the working session tomorrow night. So maybe we want to get a head count and make sure we have a quorum, or do we want to reschedule?
What's the choice?
Because of the weather?
It is not because of the weather.
I'll be here. Well, you know, and it's an important work session too.
It is, it's the
subject
budget.
is very important.
Could we possibly start later? I have a meeting that was scheduled a week earlier and they canceled because of the 3 inches of snow.
Well,
I don't think we can make it a little later with posting requirements.
It's posted, you know, one thing would be to call it to order and recess, correct?
Correct. And I may or may not be able to make it. I probably will be here. But if a trial goes forward tomorrow and I'm waiting for the jury to come back with a verdict, I'm stuck at the courthouse until they return.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't know until 4:30 tomorrow.
Would you be able to, like, zoom in as long as you weren't actually physically in court?
Possibly, just depends on what things are at. I talked with Belinda, Ron, and Jennifer. I'll probably just send in a letter saying here's where I'm at on various things for everyone to consider. So that way at least my input is here. I'm certainly willing to try and zoom in, but yeah, certainly the second I start is when they come back, and then I'm logging off right away. So.
But you'll know pretty early in the day whether you're gonna have the trial.
Yeah, probably by noon, I would know, so.
And Neil, were you still able to come later?
I could be here at 6:30.
Okay, so potentially you could also maybe give us some of your thoughts ahead of time that we could discuss prior to you coming?
Oh, they're way back here or something.
Alicia, you have a conflict?
No, I'll be here.
Oh, you'll be here, okay.
I didn't know it was a choice, so I guess. I'll be here.
Okay. We will be here at 6 to call it to order, and we may have to recess or take other, I can imagine it would be hard to do, you know, Zoom or remote for something as complex as budget, but you're more capable at stuff like that than I am at maintaining 2 screens or whatever.
I wish I could zoom the other thing.
All right, so some of us will be here for sure at 6 tomorrow evening then, right? Yes. Okay, then we are adjourned.